Here's an interesting one. I've often wondered, aren't the Tea Party people also angry rebels? Aren't they common people like us? Why do they not feel the pain we do? Yes, instead of being educated by Hedges or Chomsky, they get educated by Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin, but why do you think they do not feel our pain?
They don't feel our pain because we, as the traditional elite, betrayed them. We continue to talk about a concern for the working class while we supported power structures and political parties that thrust a knife into the back of the American working class, which is why they don't trust us on the issues of the war. In 1994, when Bill Clinton passed NAFTA, every single one of us should have turned our backs on the Democratic Party, declared them as our mortal enemy, and stood with them. That was our greatest failure. We forgot those issues of justice. We busied ourselves with other issues like multiculturalism and inclusiveness, which in and of themselves are not bad, but when you extract that element of justice, can descend into a kind of narcissism. So I think that's why. I just want to end by telling you a little bit of what I've seen in the power of acts of resistance. I covered the breakdown of Czechoslovakia, the Velvet Revolution. I spent every night in the Magic Lantern Theater with Hubble. And during that revolution, all around the city, on all the walls of the city, were posters of a Charles University student who had lit himself on fire in 1968 in Wenceslas Square and died of his burns to protest the Soviet invasion of his country. Now, when he carried out that act, the state media completely censored it, both within the print and on the television, over the airwaves. There was a funeral by university students that was broken up by police. When his grave became a shrine, his body was dug up, cremated, his ashes were given to his mother, and she was told she couldn't bury them in a cemetery. And yet, by 1989, his act of defiance was everywhere. 3 weeks after Havel became president, he renamed Red Army Square in this student's honor, and 10,000 people showed up. I stood in Wenceslas Square as Czechoslovakia's most famous singer, who had sung the anthem of defiance as the Soviet tanks rolled into Prague, walked out. Because of her defiance, she not only no longer was played on the airwaves, but all of her recording stock was destroyed by the communist government. And when she walked out 2 decades later on that podium and began to sing that anthem of defiance, everyone around me in the crowd knew every word, and the tears were running down their face. When I covered the war in Sarajevo, in Bosnia, I was interviewing a Serb couple, Drago and Rosa Sorak, outside of the enclave of Gorazda, completely surrounded by the Serbs, constantly shelled, far worse actually than Sarajevo. And they had been in Gorazda, like many ethnic Serbs. They had remained behind with a Muslim-led government until the siege tightened, the paranoia grew, and the Muslim police came and took away their son, Zoran. He disappeared. He never came back, executed. A few weeks later, Zoran's wife gave birth to an infant girl. Because of the shelling and the food shortages, she wasn't able to nurse the child. And the infant was dying. They were giving the girl weak cups of tea to try and keep her alive. After 10 days, at dawn, there was a knock on their apartment door. And it was an illiterate Muslim farmer named Fazl Fadich in a pair of rubber boots. And he handed them a liter of milk. Now, a liter of milk in Gorazda during the war was worth a lot of Deutschmark. Fadich had 3 brown and white milk cows that he could only milk at night because of the sniper fire. And he came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that, until all of the Muslim neighbors in the apartment building knew what he was doing. And as they would walk up the stairs, they would spit at him and insult him and tell him to give the milk to Muslim children and let the Chetnik babies die. Chetnik being the slang word for syrup. I heard this story from the Soraks, deeply bitter over the murder of their son. And when they told it to me, they said, "And yet it is our duty to tell you that not all Muslims are bad." So I went to Barajda and I found Fadej. His cows had been slaughtered for the meat. His house had been bombed. He was sleeping on a basement floor with several other men, and they were collecting worm-eaten apples from an abandoned orchard and selling them on the sidewalk. And when I told him that I'd seen the Soraks, he said to me, "And the baby, how is she?" In that act of resistance lay an ocean of hope. Fazl Fadej defied all of the hatred of the community around him to affirm life. That little girl may grow up and never meet him, but she knows that she's alive because of a Muslim farmer. Acts of resistance, real acts of resistance, have a power, often unseen at the time, that radiate outwards and affirm what we must affirm. Thank you.